Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Unlocked. I'm your host for the next 30 minutes. My name's Tracy Wilson, and it is my absolute pleasure to be here with you guys today. Today, I want to talk about this topic, which is why you're not getting the things that you really, really want in your life, no matter how hard you try. So let's talk about that. I'm going to talk about why that is the case and what you can do about it. So if you're feeling like that, man, I'm trying really hard, I want different things in my life, they're just not happening for me, and it doesn't matter how hard I try, then today's show will be perfect for you. Stick around and continue to watch and listen, because I will share with you how you can overcome a lot of that stuff. Now, if you're joining us for the very first time, welcome. I can't believe that we're now at episode number 14. Time absolutely flies. As I say, it flies when you're having fun, and also, when I jump on these, I always love to jump on here and, have some time with you guys. And I'm really enjoying when you guys message me and let me know, what it is that you're actually getting out of each of these episodes. So episode number 14, like I said, time really flies. If you are here for the very first time, this is a show that you would watch if you want to get more out of your life. If you want more for your business, more in your life, and more for your family, then this is the show that you want to watch, because that is all the stuff that I talk about, all the things that are absolutely real. And I unlock, my vault and the things that have gone on in my life to share them with you, in the hope that some of my challenges and also my triumphs will help you to, continue to build on your life and build something bigger, better, and more enjoyable for you as we move forward in this life that we are here for. As I say, we're here for a good time, not a long time. So let's make the absolute most of it. Also, if you're watching now, you're probably watching me either on Facebook, YouTube, or even listening to the podcast. There is a way that you can communicate with me throughout all of these shows. You simply need to click the link up above that says StreamYard so that I can see you and that you're able to message me, and that, we have the best possible opportunity to speak with one another as these episodes go on. And then also, if you're on the podcast right now, leave me comments below. I'll make sure that I go back and I answer some of those for you. So good morning to all of you guys who are watching right now. Like I said, it's always a pleasure to have you here. So I want to talk about this topic because it's something that I suppose it's dear to me, and I know that a lot of other people will be finding that they have challenges with this too. And sometimes it doesn't matter how much we want something in life. You can want it, but it becomes really difficult to get. And it doesn't matter how hard you try, it just doesn't happen. So let's dive into this and let's talk about why that is the case. Well, the first reason that I think this is the case, and why I've found this to be true, for me, and I'm talking about the stuff that happens for me because, likely if it's happening for me, it's probably happening for you too. But no matter how hard I tried for things, sometimes it just didn't come off. It just didn't happen for me. Like, for example, I've told you guys previously that I wanted to do a show like this, and I did. I started ages ago, and one of the platforms changed, and I just didn't get an opportunity to continue with it, although I could have. And a lot of that comes down to, I'm going to talk about identity. So often we don't necessarily get what we want in our life. We don't get what we want, but we get what we are. And that might sound really, really interesting, but from an identity point of view, so if you think about, the things that you get in your life right now, why is that? And maybe you can think about, when you've really, really wanted something and you've even taken steps. And I've talked in the past about, building habits and creating, checklists and doing activities to help you get to a certain point. And even if you follow all of those, the good news is that, sometimes that might work, but in most cases, it most likely won't. And the reason for that is because at an identity level, you haven't yet got to a point where you are those things. So let me explain that a little bit more. When we are born into this world with no expectations, no beliefs. We're born, we do probably three things: sleep, crap, and eat. And that's basically the three main functions that we do as a human being when we're born. And as we go through life, we get we learn different things, and we start to formulate our identity. And if you do some research, you'll find that a lot of experts will say that most of our identity as adults is actually ingrained into us before the time that we were 8 years old. And so that all starts out by us having various different experiences. So when you grow up, you have an experience, and through those experiences, you then build interpretation. So we start to sort of sit back as a youngster and go, what's going on here? So for example, if you were somebody who grew up, say, with a dad who was, an angry person, he yelled and screamed and carried on, and you experienced that, and then coming away from that, you sort of step back and you start to build interpretations around that. And you start going, oh, well, maybe dad is, yelling and screaming and carrying on, and it's at me, and my interpretation of that is that it's not good, and it's because I've been a bad girl and I'm not good enough, and blah, blah, blah. And we start to build all of these beliefs around the experience and the interpretations in which we make. And then we formulate our beliefs. And then again, as we get older or we continue through life, we take those experiences, those interpretations, and those beliefs, and we formulate stories around them. And those stories then become our identity. So I want to use, and I talked to my husband about this before speaking to you guys and kind of letting it out in the public space. But I was speaking to him a number of times. So he's struggled with his weight over 20 odd years. And he's an extremely fit person. And most people wouldn't think that he is fit, right? They would kind of look at him, and it's really interesting because he'll go to play, say, tennis or any sport, and the man is just amazing when it comes to anything sporting. But he's a big fella. So he turns up to the to a tennis court, and people will sort of look at him and go, oh, okay, this is going to be an easy round because this guy's big. He's not going to be able to, get around the court very good. Then he gets on that court and he absolutely thrashes them. And then as a result of that, people will then say to him, oh my God, you're amazing. You like this. He belongs to a group of about 50 guys, and they do all sorts of like endurance type training. And when he goes, like, he would be one of the biggest guys there. But through, heart and his capacity or his ability to be able to use his mind to do all the things that other people, half the size of him and probably more what they would consider, in inverted commas, fitter than he is, wouldn't think that he would be able to do. But he comes away from that and people go, wow, you're amazing. You've done, really good. I can't believe that you did that. And he gets all this praise and all of these accolades. And we've had this conversation about, is that part of his identity? Has it become part of his identity in the sense that, he is a big person. He's able to go on a diet and he can trim down and look, really athletic and really thin. But then after a period of time, he goes back exactly the way that he was before. And part of the conversation that we've been having is the fact that I think that's part of his identity. That has become part of his ingrained identity, that he is a big person, and that he, as a big person, he is still able to do all of the things that somebody half his size and potentially fitter than he is, as well as them. And that's become, like a safety net for him. So I want you guys to think about, are there areas in your life, so where you've been trying to do something, you've wanted something really bad in your life and you've tried lots of different things, but perhaps it hasn't happened. Now, part of that could well be because at the identity level, you are not yet that person. So I'm going to give you an example for myself. So I've talked about jumping on and just having conversations like this in the past. And in the past, I've thought, man, I've got to do, all of these things. I've got to be super prepared. I've got to do a lot of research. I need to be somebody who's gone to university. No one's going to listen to me, blah, blah, blah. And of course, those are all just stories. But those stories then form the identity. and then you start to live out that identity, right? So if you start thinking about when you were younger, what are the stories that you started to formulate for yourselves? What experience did you have as a young child? What were your interpretations back then? And what beliefs have you created from that? And then what stories have you created as a result of that? And if you think about it, think about somebody who might be a perpetual liar, somebody who, tells fibs all the time. But in their mind, they tell the fib over and over and over again to the point where that becomes their reality. The only difference is that the lie that they are telling is outward. They're actually speaking their lie. The difference is that you're speaking the lies internally. So the lies that you keep telling yourself inside your head become the identity that you live out. So if you think you cannot do something and you're continuing to tell yourself a story around that, then that story gets lived out in the behaviors and the actions in which you take, whether they be conscious or in most cases they will be absolutely unconscious things that you are doing, because that is part of the identity that you've formed for yourself, and that then becomes your safe haven. So this is a big part of why people get stuck get stuck and they're not able to move forward. They create themselves like this glass ceiling or a box that they cannot get out of. And it's like this invisible box that we create in our own mind, and that is created through the stories in which we tell ourselves. So one of the outcomes that I want you guys to think about today is, what stories have you been telling yourself for years and years? Quite possibly you picked up, if you're a female, you picked it up as a 10-year-old girl, an 8-year-old girl, and you continue to tell yourself that over and over and over. What are those stories that are actually no longer true, that do not serve you well in today? So if they do not serve you well today, and they're a story that you've been telling yourself from a young, when you were a young girl, they don't apply anymore. They don't apply to you as a 45-year-old woman. They're not the same stories that you were telling yourself back when you were 10 years old. So today is about understanding what are those stories that you've been telling yourself, and allowing yourself to free yourself from them, and utilizing some of the tools that we've been talking about in the Success Secrets for Business, Family and Life Facebook group. You've heard on Vicky's show, we've had numerous people on there talking about mindset, and I would highly recommend that you start looking at those, tapping, even using things like hypnotherapy, which you can go, I'll put a link in the description section after the show, of a place where you can go to get some hypnosis to help you overcome and let go of some of the old stories that may not be serving you well now. So I wanted to share those, a couple of really personal stories, and I know my husband won't. He was quite happy for me to share those, but it is very common. These are things that we would be doing regularly that will be preventing ourselves from kind of moving forward. In fact, last night, I've shared on another show that every Tuesday night we've been meeting with my family. So since this whole COVID thing and the lockdown situation has happened, we decided that as a family, big family, I'm talking having 25 to 30 families on a Zoom call every week, us talking about our family history and all sorts of just catching up. But what's been really interesting, I caught myself out this morning, as I was reflecting on our conversation last night. Now, on our conversation and our family kind of discussion, we were talking about ailments, and some of my older aunties, and they were talking about all the things, osteoarthritis, and we've got this problem and that problem. And it was really interesting because some of us then piped up and said, oh, wow, fantastic. That's what we've got to look forward to. Now, just in saying that, right? So in saying that, created a story that because my family members have had these ailments, therefore, is it likely that I'm going to get them? And had I already convinced myself that that's what I had to look forward to? So it's really interesting that as you think about these things and you start to become a lot more aware of what of what you're saying and what you're thinking, because often what you think about comes about. You would have heard that saying previously. So I'm just gonna look at some of the comments that I've got coming up here. And Scott Stevens saying something like 80% of our lives is lived from the subconscious. Yes. While we fully believe that we are in control and we're making choices consciously, in reality, it's our subconscious impulses and tendencies that are talking and acting out for us. Absolutely. Another example of this is, like, I don't know, in families, often you'll have mum and dad, and sometimes you play this good cop, bad cop, or, mum will be the nice one and dad will be the person that, is the hard taskmaster. When we talk about that sort of thing, then what happens is we then take on that identity. We take on and do the behaviors that we think would be that a person who should be doing, should be the hard taskmaster, is we take on those behaviors. And often that really starts to, put you in a corner. It corners you in. So if you're giving yourself these particular roles, you're putting on all these these different hats that say, today I should be, when I'm in my team meeting, I should be a hard person. I should be somebody whom is not messed with. I should be somebody who is, giving the orders. That is the behavior in which you will display in that moment, because that's the identity that you have decided that you will pick up, and you will play the role of that identity in that moment. So what I want you to think about is just like, what identities are you actually playing out? What role are you playing in each moment? Something else that is, I've heard somebody else talk about, one of the mentors in another program that I was in, he was talking about how he wanted to become a drummer, and he'd never played drums before in his life. He, was starting to, he decided that one day, hey, do you know what? I want to learn how to play the drums. Never done it before, but I'm going to give it a go. And he started playing them, and he wasn't very good. And he kept going, and he wasn't very good. He was doing all the things that they said he should do. Read this, read the score. Do the steps that they were saying. He was following it, to the letter. But what he found was that when he sat in that drummer's seat, and he took hold of the drumsticks and he started to play, he did not take on the identity. He did not feel as though he was the drummer. He was still saying to himself that he does not know how to play drums. He is learning. He's never done it before. So all of these stories that were going on in his head were actually playing out in the way in which he was learning how to play the drums, and it was taking him a lot longer. What he then did is he started to change his mindset, and slowly but surely he sat in that drummer's chair, and he was like, okay, I am a drummer. I'm going to be a rock star. I am the drummer. And he, in every ounce of his body, he felt as if he was the drummer. So when you step up to the plate, whether it be you're sitting in the drummer's seat, or you're jumping online and you're doing a show like this, I jump on here, I'm the show host. That is my role while I'm here. My job is to share stories in the hope that all of you will pick something up out of it, and it will help you to change your thinking and enable you to perform at a higher level and have a better, more thrivable life, family, and business. That is what I'm doing when I jump on here. So in everything that you're doing, what is your intention? When you assume that role, what are you stepping up to the plate to be? Are you stepping up to that plate to hit a home run, or are you stepping up the plate just to swing the bat? So, you need to make a decision as to which are you going to do, because if you're stepping up to that plate to make a home run, then the likelihood of you probably making a home run would be pretty high. And I'm just realizing that I'm looking at my camera over here, and I think you guys are actually over here. So today I've just noticed that my good camera is not going. So I will make sure that I turn over here and actually look you guys in the eye, thinking that I was down there. See, so just wanted to make sure that had the conversation today around often we really want, or we need, we really want things in our lives, but often we can't get there. And it's not because you don't want it, you haven't prayed enough, you haven't visualized it enough, you haven't, tried all of the, you are looking at us over here, I'm looking at you there, that, you haven't done all of the powers of attraction, the law of attraction. I'm really wanting to attract all of these things. That doesn't work unless you actually become that person, like internally, that you are. I was right. I'm looking at you there. Okay, weird. All right, cool bananas. I thought I was over there. It was just strange. My camera was a little off. Anyway, so we digress. So just wanted to, for you guys to understand that it doesn't matter what it is that you actually want in your life. It doesn't matter how hard you try. You've really just got to make sure that as the person that you are internally, that you really work on that. You've heard me say that time and time and time again, because transformation happens on the inside first before you actually see it on the outside. And true transformation is not just having, doing a little bit better here and there. It's actually doing full transformation. It's like really thinking about who do I have to show up as? Who do I need to become before you can, have the things that you want or do the things that you want? So you really need to start within, become that person, show up as that person, assume the identity. It will really help you to stop having, let's say, in inverted commas, the identity crisis. I'm going to tell you another little story about that, because as far as like an identity crisis is concerned, I don't know about you, but I've gone through that. And for most of you who've been listening for some time, you'll understand, or you'll know that in my previous life, before I was an entrepreneur and doing my own thing, I worked for a large corporate bank. And whilst I was working there, I was the regional manager. And as a regional manager, wow, you were somebody. You were someone it was powerful, that had, I had a lot of people reporting to me, and that I was responsible for a lot of stuff. And when you told people that you were a regional manager for a bank, well, they thought, wow, you must be really, really clever. You're powerful. You're you are somebody. And then I left that and I stepped into the entrepreneurial world. And I remember thinking to myself back then, well, what am I? Like, what am I doing now? Who am I? I was somebody. I stepped out of that role. I was a regional manager. Now what am I? And you have to go through this process of like recreating yourself, retelling new stories that build up your confidence and build up who you are, so that you then are able to show up as that person and not be, not try and be something that you're not. So, it's like the layers of this are that we have our experiences. We learn from those experiences. We interpret those experiences to then mean something for us, whether it be a good thing or a bad thing. And we then formulate our beliefs around the experiences and the interpretations that we've made. Those beliefs then become the stories that we continue to tell ourselves over and over and over. And if you remember, when you tell yourself a story over and over and over, so many times, it becomes your reality, whether it is or it's not. So telling your story, so often what we've got to do, if those stories don't serve us anymore, if they do not serve us well now, what do you need to do? Well, you need to start telling yourself a different story. You formulate new stories that create who you are and what you're going to be. One of the things that's worked really well for me in the past is like doing a vision board and even writing to my future self who I am and what I'm going to be. And it's been really interesting. I've done this a number of times over and over again. And in one case, I did this vision board. We moved house. I put it down in in the basement or in our apartment cage, and I'd completely forgotten all about it. And then when I went to clean out our apartment cage one day, I opened it up and I was like, oh my God, this vision board that I've created here with all these pictures on it, I've pretty much done everything that was on that vision board. So it's super, super powerful, and I can do a whole session on like creating a vision board. But these sorts of things, really do help. So it's not doing one thing in isolation. It's doing all of these things kind of together that create the story that then create the new identity for yourself, because it's like the infinity, the figure eight, the infinity. Your stories create your identity. You continue to tell that story. It perpetuates into more of your identity. So the way in which you change all of that is you're going to start changing your stories. The way that you start changing them is just sit down, get out a piece of paper and a pen and start writing, writing to yourself, write out and start formulating what you want your future self to be, to do, to have. And then when you do that, you'll start to bring that to life. You'll start to be that person that you need to be to have the things that you want. That will then start to formulate part of your identity, and then things will become a whole lot easier and simpler. Together with these two things, so you've got kind of like the identity, and then you've also got your values. I want to talk about this in another session, because to me, both of those go together. And I've had some instances, I had like an aha moment where, those two, when I brought those two things together and I understood that creating the identity for myself, but then also aligning that identity with my values, then all of a sudden, poof, that's when, sort of magic started to happen, and, started to get a lot of really good momentum. So I want to keep that for another session, where I'll talk about values, but also that could well be one of the reasons why you're not getting what you want in life, is because what you want doesn't align with your identity. You're always going to revert back to your identity. Hence the reason that people win lotteries and they win millions and millions of dollars, and then a few months later they are broke again. Why? Because they, at the identity level, they didn't think of themselves as a rich person. So what your identity does is it will do everything it possibly can to get you back to balance with your identity. So if you think that you're a poor person, you're going to have money come and money is going to go, because that's what you think you are at the identity level. And as we know, as humans, we are our brain, our conscious brain, subconscious mind will do whatever it can to keep us safe, and that becomes our safe haven. We go back to where our identity is truly at. So I want to save the values for another session, but let's talk about that next week. What we do have coming up on Friday, I've got a bit of a special guest that's going to be joining us. So I want to let you know that a guy by the name of Chris Brunetti is going to be joining me. So he's based here in Australia, and he is a absolute whiz when it comes to developing SaaS products. So and also membership programs. So one of the things that we've been talking about on the show is like how to create an income, how to create alternative streams of income and diversify so that you are self-sufficient, so that you have sustainability and profitability over a long period of time. So one of the ways in which we can do that is by utilizing some of the tools that Chris is going to be talking to us about. And he's worked with some very high-profile people who are extremely successful. So I'm going to be picking his brain, unlocking his vault so that he can share with you guys exactly how to do it and the tools that he uses. So stay tuned for this, my Friday, which will be Thursday in America, but that will be episode number 15 will be with Chris Brunetti, who is the owner and founder of a program called Members Pro, which we are also using here at Metadyne, and we will uncover what we're doing with that also in the show. So I'm looking forward to that. So today's show, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I want you to understand that, it's not your fault. I don't want to give you rah, rah, rah and hype. However, the thing is that you have the power to change this stuff. You are the person who holds the key. You need to just put that key in your own lock and unlock yourself so that you can build the family, the life, and the business that you've dreamed of. It is possible if you do the things that we're talking to you about here. So that being said, thank you so much for joining me today. It's always my pleasure to have you here. I'm pleased that you are here with me today, and I look forward to seeing you guys again on Friday. Have a fantastic day, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.